All right, hello, I am Mr. Rogers,
And I'm Mrs. Froman.
and you're watching the video lecture now. This is for two sections. It'll be on 1-1 in our new book and also 1-3. All right, some kids freaking out because we skipped 1-2, but we're skipping 1-2.
Yep.
And so section 1-1 in our books, guys, is about characteristics of living things. What does it mean to be alive? Well, we're going to go over these steps pretty quickly because we want to spend time on the taxonomic keys at the end of it. So remember, stop and pause as you need to. All living things are made of cells, at least one cell. And they're often made of many cells in their cellular organization, which means they might have specialization in their cells, like our skin cells, blood cells, liver cells, all have certain jobs.
Yeah,
Look
so
different.
they look different shapes, different functions.
So these cells are made of chemicals, mostly water. Remember proteins and lipids from the way back in the beginning of the year. One of the big things that means that you're alive is cells can use energy to carry out life's function. So they can use energy. That's a kind of a key component to be alive is you're able to use energy in some way.
So all living things use that energy to grow and develop to produce a complex organism. So most living things start out as one cell.
Mm-hmm.
A few of them stay one cell,
Mm-hmm.
but most of them grow into multiple cells and as you get into mammals, really complex organisms.
And we get our cute puppies down here.
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
All right. So organisms respond to their surroundings. So they can, the idea of a stimulus and response. You think about just a simple one like a plant growing toward the light.
Toward the light,
Light's
yeah.
a stimulus. This time of year, we've had how many hundreds of geese out in our fields out here. They are heading mostly south. They kind of,
Yeah.
some actually come down and stay around here, but they kind of keep traveling south. So the changing of the season is a stimulus, and the geese respond to it that way.
Then organisms are able to reproduce, so you can get more organisms.
Mhm.
So
So there's the baby giraffe.
cute little giving giraffe a kiss.
So one big idea that comes out of life here is that life comes from life. And so even up to like 400 years ago, so think at the end of the Middle Ages there, people believed in spontaneous generation. So living things can come from non-living things. People actually believed that, meat, stale meat, produced maggots.
Yeah, just turned into magnets.
just popped out of
Maggots and
nowhere.
Flies. Just-
Or, certain times of the year when they harvested the hay, mice appeared. The mice came from the hay. We now know that's true, and Francisco Reedy had a nice little experiment to kind of show that. Again, if you just cover the meat up and flies can't get in, there are no maggots.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you put like a little screen so only some can get through, there's a few maggots. And if it's completely open, there's a lot of maggots. So
Yeah.
one basic kind of experiment to kind of show living things come from other living things.
The needs of living things, you have to have food to get your energy.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have water because a lot of the chemical reactions that go on in your cells need water.
Yeah.
Have to have a place to live. And
Makes sense to me.
then the big thing is keeping stable internal conditions. And that's called homeostasis. So with mammals and birds that have warm-blooded things, that's keeping the body temperature at a constant.
That 98.6 or somewhere close to
Yes,
that, yeah. And reptiles, they need to be near that warm source, either from the sun or I know like your pets, they got the heat rock there for them or the heat lamp to
Yep.
help do that. And I got a nice little song for this one too. So we think about Farmer in the Dell. So food, water, shelter, space, a habitat is home. I'll sing that for you if you ask me in class. But you got to ask.
Oh.
Oh boy, scary.
Can't get that on tape, huh? Can't
No,
record
not putting that one out on YouTube. All right, so next, guys, we are jumping into classifications. We got these living things, what it means to be alive. How do we classify all these different types of living
Okay.
things?
Separate them out.
Right, and since there's 2.5 million different kinds of living things, there's got to be a system to classify to put them into their kingdoms, phylum, class, or species. So classification is based on similar traits. So birds with feathers, kind of feathers, animals go in one way. But also now we have more and more there's DNA evidence to back up a lot of this too, more and more.
Yeah.
Not just what we can see. We can look inside the cells and look at the DNA.
Yeah.
And so how we classify things, it's called taxonomy. It's a study of how living things are classified. So we're going to spend some time on how do we do this? How do we classify 2.5 million different
Million
types?
species.
That's right.
Well, Aristotle was the first guy that kind of decided we need to kind of classify these. So he classified them as animals that fly, animals that swim, animals that walk. Pretty basic.
Yeah.
But then as time went on, we realized we need a little more detail than that.
Because a dolphin
Listen.
can swim,
Yeah.
but a dolphin's a mammal. We're closer to dolphins than fish are to
Right.
dolphins. So yeah, it doesn't quite always work out that simply.
Exactly.
Our next guy, and he's really kind of the father of modern taxonomy here, is Carolus Linnaeus. And he placed organisms in groups based on observable features, so things we can see. He developed a binomial nomenclature, so bi means two, nomial, so naming system. That each animal gets that two-part name. So the first is the genus of the organism. So we'll get to that kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. It's Latin and starts with a capital letter. The second name is the species. Organisms that can mate and produce fertile offspring are considered to be in the same species, and that starts with lowercase. So every animal has a two-name scientific name. So Homo sapiens for us. Down here we have the wolf.
Canis lupus.
There you go, and see the first one's capitalized, second isn't. So genus and species. And so these different levels of classification. So kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Now, do you have an acronym? I have a nice little acronym for it to help us remember all 7 in a row.
What is yours?
Mine is King Philip came over for good spaghetti.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. So King Philip came over for good spaghetti. I know Mr. Ryan's had a song back in the day, so there's all different kinds of way to remember it, but we need to know those different orders of how things are classified.
Then we have the taxonomic key, and that's what we use to figure out what genus and species they belong to. So it's a series of paired statements that describe physical characteristics of different organisms. So it gives you 2 choices each time. So if I have an animal, it has feathers, yes or no. If it's yes, I'm going to go up, and it says, does it swim? Yes or no. If it doesn't swim, I'm going to say no. Oh, it must be a hen. That's pretty simplified.
This is pretty basic. I know the ones we do in class are much more detailed. And you have pictures of the animals, and it's based on those observable features that we can see. Just yes or no. Does it have a different type of tail or feathers? Or I think the shark one is all about the different type of fins it has on there. It's helped to identify
and the gills,
it. Yeah, but it's basically a series of yes or no questions. So you're just following that yes or no as you go through the chart. And this one's set up like a bracket. A lot of times it's just in a list form too.
Yeah, it'll just say go to number
the next step. And we'll talk more about how to do these in class. But that's how we classify these animals, is breaking them down into more and smaller characteristics until we get that species of living thing. So here's an example. We'll probably do that one in class. I think that's a good place to stop. So 7th grade, we thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you along the way.
Bye. Okay, that was